G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic. Today we're checking out the new Fender ToneMaster Pro, which is their first really serious foray into digital modeling. I haven't even opened the box yet, so I'm pretty keen to see what this actually looks like. And I'm gonna have about 18 hours to put this video together before it officially goes live. If you've been keeping up with what's going on in the kind of guitar digital modeling space, you may have seen that this got leaked last week and people have been kind of frothing at the mouth to see what it's all about. So I'm gonna do that on today's video. I'm just gonna dive in. I'll do a quick unboxing. If you don't like unboxings, just follow the timestamps. And I'm very curious to hear what the amp modeling sounds like, what the effects selection is like, and what the general workflow is like on the unit. But first, let's do this. It's got the jiggle. Very, very tight box. All right, check that out. That is a very big, impressive touchscreen on there. What do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 foot switches that have rotary encoders. I am just very quickly going to pull this out and hopefully not make any weird noises. A few initial thoughts with this. It's pretty chunky. That's definitely, it's got a built-in power supply, so no external PSU. I like that a lot on there. So let's take a quick look at the unit. So size-wise, this is probably a little bit bigger than, say, a Fractal FM3, a little bit bigger than a Quad Cortex, definitely deeper than something like the QC. You can see all the I/O on the back there. This is very, very slick. That touchscreen is a lot bigger than it looks in the photos that I have seen on there. You've got 2 encoders here. These foot switches are also knobs, so I'm very curious to see how they integrate that into the workflow on there. And then on the back, we've got XLR outs, we've got an aux in, headphones, 2 expression pedal jacks on here, MIDI in and out. There is a USB-C slot, and this does launch with a software editor. I'll talk about these things a little bit later in the video. 4 effects loops. You've got 2 outputs on here, a toe switch, amp control, so it's got switching relays in it. There is a mic or line in on here, an instrument in. So this kind of seems like it covers everything, which is awesome from an I/O standpoint, but I'm mostly curious about how this sounds. So let's just dive in, check out a few rigs, check out a few features, and you can fire away in the comments with any suggestions for future videos. Fender did send this one to me to keep and make some videos. I'm not getting paid for the video though. Full disclaimer, if you want to keep the lights on here and support my channel, check the video description to do that. But for now, let's check out the ToneMaster Pro. Let's start by taking a quick look at what it's actually like to use this unit. I'm on factory preset number 1, 65 Deluxe Reverb. You can see a visual representation of the blocks that are in here. There's a drive block, there's an amp, and there is a space delay. I'm coming out in stereo to my audio interface. There's no post-processing. And you can see that the default foot switch view is on the preset mode over there. If I wanted to change that, I can hit this foot switch mode button over here, and this will let me access, say, the bypass state of blocks in the preset, as well as being able to have foot switches assigned to parameter changes. We'll get to that in just a second, but the first thing that jumped out at me was that the preset changes here are seamless. I'll just go through a few factory presets. Fairly self-explanatory stuff right there. Let's go back to that first preset and let's add some blocks. I'm going to hit the add block function, and you can see I can place these anywhere I like in this signal chain. Let's start by adding a reverb at the end of the chain. So you can see that you've got combo amps, half stacks, amp heads, and cabinets as choices for the amps, which I think is interesting. Most of the time you'll just get amp and cab as separate blocks, but I think for a lot of people who aren't used to modeling, just going, hey, you know, an AC30 or a 65 Princeton, that's a combo amp. I just want that with the appropriate speaker choice. You can do that. You can also load IRs. You can also select different cabinets in there, but let's go to the effects section over here. We'll go to reverb and let's add a large hall reverb at the end here. I'll hit confirm. This has added it to the chain. Let's just hear it at the stock settings. If I want to replace an effect or remove it, you know, there's little functions down here. Let's go to replace because I can show you a list of the available effects over here. So for the delay, auto swell delay, you've got mono digital delay, a dynamic delay, there's a memory man model in there, a ping pong delay. A lot of these options have mono and stereo variations on there. And what's interesting is you can actually just continuously scroll through all the effect types up here. So stomp box is going to be your boost and your drives up here. There's a blues breaker, there's a king of tone in there. You've got your tube screamers, clons, ODR1, which is pretty cool. Kind of everything that you would expect as stock choices in here. You know, you've got stereo chorus, there's a dimension style chorus in there. You've kind of got JC style choruses. There's an electric mistress flanger, an MXR flanger, phase 90, a bunch of different trem options, different rotary speaker options, which is cool. The reverbs have everything from springs. There's even algorithmic or convolution springs in there. There's some hall reverbs and then some of your more kind of like special effect cloud and celestial shimmer reverbs. There are some solid compressor choices in here, some graphic and a parametric EQ, which is pretty standard in there, various noise gates. There's no dual detune as a standalone type, but there is a chromatic pitch shifter and a diatonic harmonizer in there. I'm interested in the feedback generator as well. So that's an overview of all the effects. Let's take a look at the available amp model. Fenders, as you might expect, there's a Bassman, Princeton, Deluxe Reverb, Super Reverb, Twin Reverb. They've got the bass breaker in here. And it's pretty novel seeing an amp modeler that calls a Deluxe Reverb and not a kind of deluxe Verb or supreme Verb or something like that. So because it's a Fender modeler, they've obviously got the license to their own amp names in there. I like that the Vibro King's in here as well. That's a very good modern Fender amp. Then you've got at least one representative of all the major food groups. There's an AC30, there's a Plexi, a JCM 800, a Jubilee, there's a Friedman BE, there is of course the 5153 Stealth, Marksman is going to be a Boogie Mark II, there's a Rectifier, an Uberschall, a Roland JC Clean, there's an acoustic amp called the Acoustasonic, and then you've got a studio preamp and a tube preamp, which you can use. You know, in my case, I'm going to use it for an 80s style direct clean, but you could do a bunch of other things like that to kind of place it at the end of chain if you wanted to. Another interesting function that jumped out at me is if you are in the effects layout here, you can have these buttons simply set up to just bypass the effects, kind of pedalboard mode if you like. But if you want to assign a foot switch to control a parameter, you can do that really easily. So let's take this foot switch here. I'll hit the plus button and I'll select parameter change. Now what I can do, let's say for the delay, we'll select the delay over here and I want to be able to change the delay mix by pressing a button. So let's select mix and I can set the activated value. I want more delay. We'll go close to 50%. I'll hit confirm and I'll have the inactive value at around 18%. That way, when I've got the delay on, I've got a choice between two different parameter values. I've got a lower mix and a higher mix. Few more functions which we should talk about. In terms of preset routing, you can't freely route blocks like on an Axe-Fx or a Helix. You can go into the preset settings though and access some kind of pre-configured layouts on here. You can have some basic series and parallel chains in here, and you are able to use the microphone input and process it totally separately to the instrument. So if you're using this for your guitar and your vocal effects, you can do that. There's also a bunch of different parallel modes in there for the microphone. You can split an instrument into different signal chains as well. And basically everything you can do with the instrument, you can do with the mic, but it's not quite as flexible as some of the other options out there. If you enter the list view mode, you can see that there are options for songs and set lists at launch, which is really, really nice. I haven't programmed any songs just yet, but essentially you can go through section per section and assign a preset to it and then order all your songs into presets. There is a cloud function over here, so you can interface this with the ToneMaster Pro Control app. You've got all your factory presets, your favorited presets, and then your main preset list. There's over 500 presets available. So that just about covers, I guess, the overall user experience and the UI on there. Let's hear some sounds now. I'm gonna dial in some presets from scratch based around my personal preferences. I'm sure this being launch day, there's a bunch of videos that have come out, and there's probably someone that's done one of those every single factory preset kind of videos. So I'm gonna steer clear of that. Let's start off with probably the most basic preset you can get, just a simple combo amp in here. This is a PRS DGT. I'm on the tapped neck pickup, and I have the Princeton model dialed up in here. Let's just hear it at the stock settings. It sounds pretty sweet. I like that. You will notice there is a little bit of reverb on there by default. And if I double tap this, this is because the Fender amps in particular basically have everything that the real amps would include. So a lot of modelers out there will give you, say, a Princeton model or a deluxe reverb model, and the reverb will be a separate block. But in here, you've actually got a control for the reverb. So these parameters can either be tweaked on the touchscreen or on the Footswitch encoders here. So what I want is a little bit more grit, so I'm going to turn the volume control up. I am going to turn the reverb up a little bit, and I'll add a little bit of intensity and speed from the built-in tremolo on there. That's pretty sweet. I do want to tweak the cabinet though, because it's nice being able to swap between mic positions on here. You can see, hopefully you can see, you've got a bunch of different mic positions. So you've got cap edge, cone, and cone edge in here. And then you've got distances from 0, half, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. You can select between different cabinets, different microphones. I'm going to swap the mic out here for a 121 ribbon. I dig that, and I dig the trem and the reverb in there. What I'm going to do is tweak the high cut over here. I can actually use this encoder down here. So I'm going to take that to about 8K or something like that. Low cut is at 80. I can have the mic on or off axis, and I can move it to a different position if I want. Let's try off axis for something different. If I wanted to, I could change to a different cabinet as well. So let's try, I mean, you know, a Princeton with any of these cabs is going to sound a little bit more like the actual amp. With Fenders, the cab is such a big part of the sound. Let's just try something totally out of the ordinary for a Princeton, and we'll go with like a British Greenback Cab over here. So still got the same mic and mic position on here. It's just gonna have a very different character now. Demonstrates the power of the cab block in particular, and if you're not used to using a modeler, the cab is so important in here, and the mic selection is so important as well when you're going direct. But if you are familiar with modelers, you already know that, and you can see that it's pretty easy to get that dialed in to your preference. Let's try a different amp in here. Let's go for an amp head. So I'll go for, I don't know, let's maybe try a Marshall, something that's not a Fender. Let's start out, say, with the British Plexi. I'll confirm that, and then there's no cabinet on here. So what I can do, if I want to have a separate cab block, is add that at the end. Let's go to cabinets, and I can actually just select the type I want. That 4x12 British Greenback was pretty sweet, so I'll start there. Let's tweak the cab. I'm going to start with the SM7B microphone, one of my favorite real-world microphone on something with greenbacks, and we'll go, say, 1 inch from the cap edge. Let's set the high cut to around 8K over here with the encoder. To bring it down, low cut I'll take to about 80. I do like that these encoders aren't too extreme. Sometimes on things like this, you try to get the low cut to around 80 and it immediately goes to like 300 or something like that. So I can also go on or off axis. So stock Plexi bridge humbucker. Try the JCM 800 now. This is kind of a litmus test for any model. That, but you can hear in there, it almost sounds like there's some crossover distortion or aliasing happening, which just kind of adds this weird ratty edge to it. I'm not sure if that's the way the amp that they modeled sounds like, but it just sounds a little bit harsh to my ears in there. There is another Marshall model in here though. There's the silver Jubilee. So let's bring up the Jube. I think they've actually got clean rhythm and lead. Let's just go to British Jubilee lead, and then we'll hear the Friedman and maybe some of the boogies as well. Kind of hear the same artifact in there, so I'm not sure if it's the model or the cab. I have switched over to my free cabinet IR that you can get from the video description, LTTV Mix 7. Let's hear that now with the Jubilee, and I'll just tweak it a little bit. Let's hear the Friedman BE now. This is normally one that you expect to be pretty tasty in just about any modeler. The EVH 5153 Stealth. This is an officially licensed model. Again, it's kind of cool playing a 5150 model that's called a 5150 model. Let's try this. That is easily my favorite high gain amp model so far. Let's just try a few others and see how we go. I might circle back to that one though. Let's replace it, say, with the Marksman Channel 2. So this is based on a Boogie Mark II C+, and I like that the default settings have the bass and middle low and the kind of V-style shape on the graphic EQ. If you want to tweak the graphic, you can press it over here and you've got finer controls. So let's hear this, same IR. Guess I would say that was modeled with the fat switch on. Let's just keep rolling through these. There's a dual rectifier. We should definitely hear the dual rectifier and play some big sus2 chords on it. impressed with the rectifier in there. The Uber was a little bit dark sounding and flubby, and it sounded to me like that Mark series was just a little bit too smooth and saturated. But my favorite out of all of them, surprise, surprise, was the 5153. So I've added the Mythic drive based on a Klon in front of it. Let's try that. Hopefully the cat doesn't knock the camera over. You might have seen that one shaking just there. Let's hear that. Pretty sick. There's a lot of gain happening there. I've added the dynamic delay after the amp and cab. Let's just have a listen to what that does. Okay, so this gives us some insight into the delay block. You can set the time or the tempo subdivision. You've got a low cut and a high cut in there. I've turned the high cut up a little bit in there. Feedback and mix, then you can page across. You can set the threshold, the attenuation amount, and the release time on there, as well as adding some modulation and as well as changing the modulation waveform. So this is stuff that just about every delay worth its salt should have. And that's the deluxe Memory Man model in there in stereo. You can set it up so you can have different delays, subdivisions, or times on each delay tap, pan hard left and right. So that's a quarter note and a dotted eighth note on there. That makes me really, really happy, having like a Klon style boost, a high gain amp, and then a stereo delay like this. You know, I can do a lot of things with that. Let's add some mod effects to it though. All right, we've got to try the dimension style chorus in here. There's only one control and it sets the mode. So you've got mode 1, 2, 3, 4, and then combos in there. I'm just gonna go mode 3 because that's my favorite on the real pedal. Let's hear how wide and greasy this sounds. And 5150 amp, we got to hear some phase 90 in front of it. That kind of gets me going for the greasy lead stuff. Let's try something cleaner. I've got the Bassman model now, and I'm going to put the Electro Harmonix Electric Mistress Flanger model in front of it, and then a bit of the Cloud reverb and some ping pong delay. Let's just hear the flanger, then the ping pong, then the big reverb. Here's another preset that I built from scratch. This is built around a clean Vibro King and a pair of the 1x12 EV IRs. I've used a parallel splitter over here so that this top EV cab is mic'd with an SM57 and the bottom EV cab that you can see over here is mic'd with a 121. In this splitter box over here, you can set the level and the pan of everything coming in and coming out over there. So I'll just let you hear the core clean sound. I'm using the large plate reverb on there. You can see the foot switches are assigned mostly to turn effects blocks on and off. This button over here increases the mix on the plate reverb. Over on the right, the Vibro King fat button turns the fat switch on, and this multi turns on the feedback generator and the delay, because I would normally want to use those together. That will get me through my typical kind of cover gig, or if you've got to do a corporate show where you have to play a wide variety of styles. Normally I just use a clean amp and gain stage it with some pedals. Having these multi-switch options on here is nice, and you can kind of set up things equivalent to, say, scenes or snapshots on other units with that. I will do some videos in the future kind of building some rigs with this, so let me know what you would like to see and hear. Before we go, let's just see how much we can cram into a single preset. You can have multiple amp blocks. You can see this factory Puppet Master preset has two different instances of the Boogie Mark II C+ model. The clean sound here has a studio comp into one of the amps. It's going into a cab, a JC chorus, a delay, and a reverb. And then the other setup is a gate, a tube screamer, one of the amp models set dirty, and it's got the delay and chorus bypassed on there. So let's just have a listen to both of those sounds on there. All right, let's just add blocks to this and see how we go. So I'll hit add block. I don't really care where I add this, but you will see some options that are grayed out. So I actually can add another amp head in here if I want to. Let's kind of add anything. We'll add a UK 30, just for the fact that you can have 3 different amp sounds in a preset and switch between them. Let's add another block in here. And what can we do? Okay, can't add any more. We can add amps. Look at this. We could add a bass breaker. So we're up to 4. This is exhilarating now. What else can we do in here? So that's pretty cool. It doesn't look like I can add any other amps. So 4 amps in a single preset. Can I have 4 amps and cabs and effects? It looks like that just kind of maxes everything out. So let's go back and maybe remove, say, this UK 30 amp model over here. I don't want to add a node, actually. I want to remove one, so I'll double tap it and I will hit remove. So up to 4 amps and you're out of it, or I should be able to add some extra stuff down here. Let's add a block, kind of anywhere. Let's see what I can add in terms of effects. So I can still add a drive. Let's add another green box in there. I imagine they all use slightly different amounts of CPU. Let's come through and add some more effects in here. I can add another drive as well if I want to. Maybe let's go for, say, another dynamics block, like parametric. That will fit in there. This isn't based on actually being useful. I'm just kind of curious how much stuff we can cram in. Let's add some kind of modulation effect in here now. So we'll add another JC chorus. And let's confirm that. Add another block. Can I add another delay or something in here? Let's go to delay. I certainly can. Let's add a dynamic delay just for fun. I should have thought this out in advance and tried to actually make this useful, but I just know that people are going to be asking about how much stuff you can add in a single preset. Okay, I'm seeing some options grayed out now, so we must be getting close in there. Let's see if we can add, we could add a stereo. Ooh, we can't add the stereo memory man, but we can add ping pong delay in there, and I feel like we're probably close to the maximum on here. So this is pretty impressive. There's quite a lot of blocks in here. You can see there's some drives in there. I could have a stereo flanger as well if I wanted to. There's no CPU meter on here that I'm aware of, so I'm just going to run this until I can add no more. It looks like I'm kind of out of stuff to add now, so let's just count up what we've got, because I know that people will ask about how much stuff you can have in a single preset. I don't want to add anything else. So we've got a compressor in there, ping pong delay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, like 20 blocks, okay? And 3 of them are amps. There's a bunch of time-based effects. So this is plenty powerful in there for anyone who is wondering. And then of course you've got stuff like Footswitch Assignments where you can kind of take one block and like morph parameters in it. So I don't think you necessarily need all of these blocks to be able to do, you know, your kind of typical gigging preset or something like that, but it is nice to know. That's just about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the overview of the features and functions with the Tone Master Pro. This one is here to stay, so I'm going to do a bunch more videos with it. I want to dive deep into some of the effects. I want to see what you can get out of the amp block and the cab block with IRs, and I also want to do a demo of the software editor and Bluetooth integration, as well as songs and set lists in here, because this packs a lot into a launch product. And I did have some criticisms of units like, say, the Quad Cortex, where they promised a lot at launch that they did not deliver at launch. And those features have kind of slowly been rolling out. What I like about this unit is that pretty much all the features that it promises are there at launch. There's a software editor, you've got songs and set lists in there, you've got a pretty big range of effects and amp models in there. To me, it's pretty clear that they have really gone into detail with the Fender and EVH stuff, the licensed stuff in there. That sounds really good. The Mark Series amps, the JCM 800 and Plexi, I wasn't as kind of taken by. I think stuff like the Fractal and, you know, obviously there's the capture tech out there like Tonex and the Quad Cortex, which really isn't comparable to this. It's a different thing to component-based modeling, but I did see some kind of talk that people were saying this like fractal level amp modeling. I don't think that's correct. I would not say that. You can't dive as deep into the amp block, and to me, there's not the kind of breadth and depth of the selections available there. And I know a bunch of people are going to say, hey, would you replace your Fractal with this? No. Straight up, no. There are things that I can do on the Fractal that I need to do live and recorded that I haven't found a way how to do on this, but that is not to say that I couldn't go and do a gig with this, because this is incredibly easy to use. It sounds good, there's plenty of options in there, and it's kind of, I don't want to say caveman friendly, right? Because I'll say 21st century caveman friendly. If you can use a phone, you can easily use this. It's sort of like everything is curated for where a guitar player might want it. And that is both a positive and a negative thing that I can say about this unit, because you don't have the infinite flexibility of something like a Helix or a Fractal, but not everybody wants that and not everybody needs that. A lot of guitar players just want to know that the tap tempo and the tune is in the bottom right, and that there's a preset mode and an effect on and off mode, and that it's all in there. Is this the last of the current generation of modelers? Or is it the first of a new generation of modelers? Are we going to get a new Helix and a new Fractal that basically uses this form factor and crams everything that they've got in there. So the other thing that I'm kind of interested to see is how Fender are going to support this, because they are new to the modeling space. And over, say, the last 15, 20 years, the modeling space has like developed its own culture where people expect free updates and they expect a hardware unit to come out and evolve, you know, unless you're Boss, because Boss don't do that. They just go, hey, here's your thing, and the firmware update will be a bug fix. But if you look at Fractal, if you look at the Helix, if you look at the Quad Cortex, they're basically regularly releasing firmware updates that add new features. They are listening to their users and implementing a bunch of things that their users want. That's an interesting part of kind of like the culture around these units and also the community aspect of it, which I'll be really curious to see if Fender get right. You know, if they just put this out and in 6 months it's 30% off at Guitar Center, I would probably consider that a miss. If in 5 years they are still releasing firmware for this and supporting it and people are using it widely and you get additions and improvements to the firmware, then I think that's going to be a win. So it's a really interesting unit. I can see why this has got so many people talking. The thing for me though is we're seeing digital modeling units by like the biggest name in guitar. Fender are taking this pretty seriously now, and whether you liked what I did with this or whether you didn't like it, I think you kind of have to admit that it feels like a new dawn where a massive guitar company is taking digital modeling as seriously as it deserves to be taken. And, you know, you can put some of the credit at the feet of companies like Line 6 and Fractal for really pushing the envelope for so long that we get a product like this. But you can also say to Fender, hey, they have actually used the resources that they've got at their disposal to put out something that pretty much just works out of the box. It looks great. It sounds really good. I don't have too much more to say other than I'll be making some more videos with this. Let me know what you want to hear. If you want to keep the lights on in here, again, my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll is linked in the video description. If you watched this far, I apologize about my unibrow. You know, I didn't get a chance to trim, but that's a story for another day. Take it easy, be good to one another, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.